Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Student Podcast. I'm your host, Charlie the Spaniard Brenneman, former Spanish teacher and UFC fighter, and this is episode number 46, New Year, New Habits, New You. Before I kick off into today's episode, I want to give you a little bit of background. As I had said, my name is Charlie the Spaniard Brenneman. I'm a former Spanish teacher and UFC fighter, and I created this podcast, Spaniard School, specifically for you middle and high school students. I learned a lot about life from professional fighting, getting knocked down, getting back up, making the right choices, training hard, committing, being determined, surrounding myself with the right people. And so I created this podcast to bring that experience to you in dealing with your middle and high school lives, whether that's dealing with fitting in at school, whether that's dealing with your challenges outside of school, possibly in your home, whether it's deals with pursuing goals, figuring out, who you are as a person, what you want to do with your future. I want you to consider this podcast as kind of a tool to put in your back pocket when life knocks you down and you feel like you can't move forward. Today's episode number 46 is called New Year, New Habits, New You. And certainly New Year's resolutions are fun to talk about. They're kind of a little bit of a cliche, meaning a lot of people start New Year's resolutions and new habits, and then they fizzle out. And what I want to do with this episode is share with you some of my favorite habits. And I say favorite in that they're not necessarily easy, but they help me as a person. I'm a very driven person. There's a lot of things that I want to do in life. I want to have fun in life. I want to develop a life that makes me happy and helps me feel fulfilled. And I want that for you. And so I figured I would put down some of my favorite habits so that you can start implementing. You don't have to do them all, but maybe take one or two from this list and try to experiment with it. And I want to throw this out there too. They're not necessarily easy. They're not like sit on your butt and scroll through Snapchat or TikTok or Netflix. It's not that, right? There's an idea that the amount you invest in something, the amount of work that you put into something can directly reflect what you get out of it. So if you want to feel good about yourself, feel good about life, feel good about going to school, feel good about your future, there's work that you need to do. And the first one of those habits is exercise. And you don't have to train like me. Look, I'm an intense person, former professional fighter, lifelong wrestler. I get after it in the gym. You don't have to do that. When I say exercise, I just mean move your body. Maybe go for a walk, go for a jog, stretch out, play a sport, pick up basketball, jog around the track. There's 1,000 different ways that you can move your body. So when I say exercise, I don't mean you have to go to the gym 7 days a week. I simply mean just move your body. And a tip here with any of these habits that I'm talking about, you don't have to like take off a giant, overwhelming workout plan and stick to it. No, just like chunk it down. That means start very small. That means go for a 5-minute walk and pat yourself on the back for going for a 5-minute walk. So don't make these things too big or overwhelming that they're so scary that you don't even start them. Rather, start small, very small. The next one is to practice patience/disconnect. So practice patience. Disconnect from your phone. I understand how drawn you are to your phone and to your social media. I get it, right? I fight that same battle every day. But I do fight that battle. So practice patience, disconnect from your phone, sit and look out the window and be bored. And I know that sounds boring, but there's a reason for it because life is not fast. Life is not always easy. And when you don't get what you want in life, you tend to feel all anxious and angry and upset and frustrated and stressed. When you practice patience and you practice waiting and you practice being bored, you're building up your resilience, right? Your ability to deal with things that don't happen right away. It's also good for your brain to disconnect from your phone, sit, be at peace, look outside, read a book, do something other than be connected to your phone. The next one, which I kind of just mentioned, is to read. And I know that reading is not the most popular thing. It's not the easiest thing when you have your phone right by you and you can connect to the world. But I'll tell you what reading does. If you're watching this video on YouTube, you can see behind me all of these books. What reading does for me and what it will do for you is it shares with you other people's lives. And a lot of times we feel like we're alone, we're isolated, we're the only ones going through a problem or a struggle. And when you read someone else's book, someone that you admire, someone that you respect, someone that you want to be like, you realize, oh, hey, they overcame this obstacle and I can overcome this obstacle too. I love reading books for that very reason. And reading is actually a way to disconnect from your phone as well. So you're killing two birds with one stone. You're one, disconnecting, and two, you're reading, learning about other people's stories, which can help you write and pursue your own story. The next one is categorized as self-care. That's kind of a fancy grown-up word for meaning take care of yourself. And that means drinking water, paying attention to your nutrition or your food intake, and resting. How you take care of yourself, right? With the exercise that I already mentioned, but by hydrating yourself. If you're watching the video, you see my water bottle here, by getting a proper amount of rest, and by being aware of the food that you're putting into your body. That is so important in how you feel and how you approach life. Don't worry about this diet, that diet, the other thing. Just think in terms of whole foods, fruits, vegetables, proteins, water, lots of that. If you eat and drink lots of that, you have plenty of room for the good stuff. I love Cinnamon Toast Crunch. I love Swiss cake rolls. I love crimpets. I love candy. I love that stuff too. But because we're talking about positive habits, I make sure that I'm getting my fruits and my vegetables and my proteins and my water, and that I'm resting, because I know that is like the training for the day. The next one, I wrote down on my notes here, surround yourself with the best. And what that means is not necessarily first place champions. What that means is surround yourself with good people. Surround yourself with positive people. Surround yourself as much as you possibly can. And I know some of you feel like you don't have the ability to do this. I know some of you are dealing with life situations that make it very difficult for you to get away from negativity. It makes it very difficult for you to be around people who support you. I understand that. I get a lot of your feedback, but I do want to say there are opportunities, maybe not a lot, but there certainly are opportunities at school. Your teachers, your principals, your guidance counselors, they care. I would also venture to say that there are students in school. You might think you don't have any friends. You might think that everyone hates you, nobody likes you. But I bet there are students at your school that would help. That would help encourage you, that would help support you, that would help give you hope. And the way, if I were you, if I were a student, the way I would find that out is I would go to my principal, I would go to a teacher I trust, or the guidance counselor, or my coach, and I would say, hey, coach, I could really use some help here. I feel like I don't have any friends. It's very hard for me to say this to you, but I'm embarrassed of it, but I feel like nobody likes me. Is there anyone on the team? Is there anyone in the class that you think would talk with me? And I bet you that a teacher, a coach, an administrator, they would help you find that person. So think of surrounding yourself with the best as an idea or a mantra, a saying, a life principle to put yourself as much as possible around positive, hopeful, encouraging people. You can also do that by way of this podcast, by way of the books you read, by way of other podcasts, and also by way of following on your social media positive, helpful, supportive people, famous or otherwise. And then the last one is to challenge yourself. Learn something new, do something new. It could be a language, it could be an instrument, it could be a sport, it could be a skill, it could be juggling, it could be anything. And I say this because of this. There's a principle called the progress principle. It's a grown-up fancy term, but the progress principle. and that we as people get meaning, fulfillment, happiness, joy from progressing toward a goal, not necessarily just having like accomplished a goal, but actually working toward a goal. So for me, challenging myself, I read a lot. I'm consistently learning new ways to train my body and train my mind. It makes me feel good about me, and it makes me feel good about life. So the last one is to challenge yourself. So we have exercise, we have practicing patience or disconnecting, reading, taking care of yourself, right? 3 simple ways: water, healthy nutrition, and rest. Surrounding yourself with the best, positive, hopeful people. And lastly, challenging yourself by learning and doing new things that challenge your abilities. That's also known as a growth mindset, since we're talking, this is an educational show. And then lastly, last thing I want to throw at you, I read in a book called The Success Principles, and it's all these principles for a successful, healthy, happy life. And the first one was take 100% responsibility for your life. Take 100% responsibility for your life. So I know you're young. I know there's only so many things that you can do, but I wish someone would have told me that when I was in middle school or high school. Hey, Charlie, stop pointing your finger and stop blaming people. Rather take 100% responsibility for your life. And that's exactly what I'm doing now. And that is what I encourage you all to do in your middle and high school days as well. So I want to thank you all for listening. A reminder, I come out with a new episode here on Spaniard School every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Please consider subscribing and or leaving a review. I'd love you to come back every Tuesday. Tell your friends, tell your teachers, if you are a parent, tell other parents that are listening. My website is charliespaniard.com. It has my assembly program information, this podcast information, as well as my online school, Spaniard School. All of that information is available at charliespaniard.com. You can use the links if you're listening via the podcast app. You can use the links below to connect with me directly and or visit those sites that I had mentioned. I want to thank you all for tuning in. Remember, you don't have to do all of that stuff that I mentioned. Pick one of them, start small, and make it a great 2023. See you.